Hi everyone, it's my pleasure to host the industry dialogue, and our topic for the day is organizational restructuring and job losses and strategies for coping and adapting. India's job market has witnessed a surge in layoff across sectors due to economic downturns, technological advancement, and organizational restructuring. We will explore the impact of these layoffs, strategies to cope with challenges, and potential opportunities in this evolving landscape. Coping with layoffs can be overwhelming, but embracing resilience and seizing opportunities is crucial. So, we will discuss layoffs' personal and societal impact, emphasizing the importance of emotional well being and acquiring new skills to remain competitive. Networking strategies, job search tactics, and insights into the startup ecosystem will be shared to empower individuals to find new opportunities. Moreover, we will explore government initiatives, emerging industries, and reskilling programs that offer hope and pave the way for a prosperous future. Together, let us navigate these challenges and embrace the evolving market confidently and optimistically. It gives me immense pleasure to introduce our speaker for today's session, Amit Karandikar. Hi, Amit. Welcome.
Hi.
So,
Hi.
just
Hi.
give a quick introduction about Amit. Amit is seasoned HR generalist with 28 plus years of experience across diverse industries, including petrochemicals, telecom, textiles, and garments, market research, pharmaceuticals, IT, chemicals, and agriculture. I think huge experience, I can say, with the diversified industries. He currently serves as a general manager and head of human resource for India and SAC operations at NetAfim India. Amit received multiple awards for his contribution to HR, including the Most Influential HR Professionals Award in 2016 and Achiever of Excellence in HR for 2016 and 17, and many more. So I think this is just a brief. Otherwise, I think my entire session will go for introduction. I think so many achievements he has. So thank you so much, Amit, for joining us.
Thanks, Sumit, for those generous words and lines of introduction. And whenever I listen to this introduction piece in any of the functions, I always feel, and I always debate with myself that this is something which has become actually irrelevant nowadays, because what we have done in the past hardly matters, and each day starts with a new challenge and new expectation and new opportunities. And I think that is very, very relevant to the topic that we are going to discuss today, because just take an example of, if Sachin Tendulkar's bio someone reads and it talks about hundreds of centuries and blah, blah, blah. But the day on which he, plays on the ground, what matters is that day. Or Virat Kohli nowadays, Sachin is now probably a past, Virat is the present. So similarly, I think for any one of us as a professional, I think whatever we have done is an experience, it helps. But what we do every day, every morning, coming on the job and taking new challenges, that's what matters irrespective of what we did in the past. So thanks for those words, but I feel more responsible whenever I listen to that 28 years and all, because that puts moral pressure on us, do something better than what is expected to be done. So I think thank you for that introduction, and thanks you and Aditi and TeamLease for organizing this particular dialogue. And I feel it's a very learning opportunity mutually. We will exchange our thoughts on this subject, and I'm looking forward to this interaction for sure.
Great. Thank you so much, and such a nice word, I know. But believe me, the experience makes a lot of difference. Though I totally agree, I think the way the dynamics are, and we have to keep learning, and every day is a new day. But I'm sure this can be expensive for a number of people, the awards and all which you're getting it. But yeah, like rightly said, daily you have to go and play. That's what matters rather than the records which are there. So these records are meant to be broken. So I think very much in line with this. Let's see. I start with a new day. So to begin with the session, Amit, I would like to know from you, what are the primary factors, driving the surge in layoffs across various sectors in the Indian job market? So your views on that.
Yes. In fact, on this subject, if we are talking this subject today, the factors that are impacting, I want to set the context of this particular topic, and because whatever question answers we do, we'll have this context or frame of reference. So I'm taking a period of say last 4 years, starting 2020, because I think now our world is divided into pre-COVID and post-COVID. So I think here I would be primarily talking about 2020 onwards, because the dynamics have changed. starting onset of COVID and what followed after that. And also, primarily, my responses and my views would be in the context of company that I work for, which is Orbia Netafim, and the employees that we hire. Of course, we take TeamLease services for hiring our off-role employees, which is about 500 in numbers, which if I talk in numbers, it's about 40% of our workforce, which is a huge number. But I would not differentiate between on-roll and off-roll on this subject, because ultimately the human being is involved, when it comes on this subject. Yeah. So on-roll and off-roll is the arrangement I think we as a management have evolved over a period, and that's the way, we put things into balance sheet. But either it is on-roll or off-roll, expense is an expense and a profit is a profit. So, it hardly matters.
Yeah.
So that is the context. One is the time, another is the reference point, and that drives me also to a type of people we talk about, because here we'll be talking more of people in the field. I would not like to brand them with some adjective, but for the clarity sake, let's say it's a blue collar category, put it this way, not the managerial one, because then the again references changes. So I want to be very clear on what we are talking about, the blue collar or the field employees, or those actually are involved, because that has an impact on their income levels and the skill levels and the impact that happens with job, without job. So that's the brief context I'm setting. And now coming to your question of the factors, I think first, COVID has changed the dynamics of the way world looks at import and export, the way we look at the sourcing places and the demand and supply dynamics. More recently, if I talk now, COVID was dying down and we were happy when we started with 2022. And all of a sudden, this dynamics of Europe started with Ukraine war and what is happening after that. So I think the nature has decided to give us a lot of challenges. When the COVID died down, human being created its own challenge by way of Ukraine war and the related things that have happened. Now, why I'm saying this gets multiplied and complex with the set of automation and the kind of things that, because why we are looking for automation, all these things are putting pressure on the cost. All these things are putting pressures on the margins. So people are thinking from where to import, where to export, where do I get more margins? And in that race, you end up looking at things which you can control from the organization perspective. And that's the area where people think of replacing labor with robots. The moment you see that, it results into, of course, some job loss for some people, though it's an opportunity for some industry. Say automotive industry is getting, advantage of this. So each issue or point we talk about here will have two coins, but probably primarily we are talking of currently the flip side of whatever is happening. The third dimension is probably the policy changes. And when I say policy changes, the government policy, organizational policy. For example, the moment we talk of government policy, in our case, we are primarily, our business primarily depends on the government subsidy that government gives for agriculture, for deploying drip irrigation systems. Now, in last 4 years, what has happened? Government has limited funds. It has so many battles to fight. And because of COVID, the focus went on health, hygiene, and safety of people. So government put the money there. While we were doing business, farmers got benefited, they got systems. And you'll be surprised to know that in India, the subsidy ranges from 70% to 95% in different states. So if I am doing a business of 100 rupees, my 70 rupees comes from government, and the balance 30 comes from the farmer. Now, just to give you the numbers, we had about 400 crores of outstanding during the COVID period, which we were to take from government. Now, one thing, the good story of this is government money, not going to go. Government will not default. But imagine the kind of pressure it puts on our working capital.
Yeah, I think that was about to say, I think the working capital is having a huge impact because of this.
Absolutely. Working capital is under tremendous pressure. And we are fortunate that we are part of Orbia, which is a global conglomerate with 10 billion plus revenue globally, 5 different business units, 25,000 employees. So that way, our parent balance sheet is very strong, and that helps us get good amount of credit loans from the ecosystem, and we could survive. But just to give you the context, in India, our competition or a smaller competition couldn't even survive. They had to close their shops because They can't afford to have such a outstanding coming where, normal cycle of our money coming back is 90 days to 120 days. Here, you're talking of 400 days, 465 days. Your money hasn't come back. Where you get that money from? So I'm saying this everything ultimately results into, them cutting the corners, start restructuring. You start looking at where I can save money, when I can, double up the jobs and optimize. In better English, we can say, optimize the manpower. But essentially, it means rationalizing or reducing manpower. If you want to take that pill in a bitter way, it results into reduction of manpower at the end of the day. So I think, to my mind, to answer your question, these are the factors which are playing a role. And in a way, another policy, if we see, Atmanirbhar policy, which is very good, which I feel very good for MSMEs, very good for small industries, very good for to boost employment within the country. But since we are in transition, people are somewhere confused in terms of, to be qualified under Atmanirbhar, what I need to do. I need to have my manufacturing here, I need to have my Indian promoter, I need to deploy local people, blah blah blah. There are conditions, and in that, sometimes people end up doing something which they are not supposed to do. If you have funding coming from outside and you are getting some parts, X number of percentage of parts from import and doing it here, that may not qualify in Atmanirbhar, because you need to have your sourcing of parts internally, assembly of parts here. The whole idea of Atmanirbhar is to promote employment locally in the local ecosystem. So if you don't qualify there, you need to revisit your business. And that's where probably some job losses, some opportunities. I think it's an interplay that is happening. That's what I feel personally.
Yeah. No, I agree. I think some of the pointers, like you mentioned, there is a change in the dynamics. Obviously, today we talk about pre-COVID or pre-pandemic, post-pandemic, and all. The entire dynamics got changed. And though there's a lot of the introduction of technology which is there, and I think that is also one impact, one a factor which is impacting. But I think we also mentioned it. Some jobs are going away, but yeah, there are new jobs which are coming. And I think again, though I'll not touch upon that topic, because again it's talk about your upskilling, reskilling and all, because as per the requirement, the manpower is available but not suitable, the skill set is not there. So that's a different topic. But yeah, I think like you mentioned 400 days and all, 500 days. So there will not be a bad debt basically. Like you said, the money is safe, you will get the money. The only thing, the cost of capital, because the interest, because you
When is the question mark? When is the question mark? That's
correct. So,
something very
400
dangerous.
is too much because you have to run a business end of the day. I think good thing is you have a good backup and all financially, so you can easily manage the things. Otherwise, it's not that easy, frankly speaking.
Yeah.
I think valid point on those fronts. And see, the layoff, obviously, like you mentioned, this is something, there's a last option people normally want to get into. Like, there are multiple things they try, optimization of cost and all other ways. Then obviously there's no option, because it's not something people wants to go for a layoff. But there are things which are not in control. I'm saying from the employer perspective also. Obviously, from employee side, nobody wants, to get into that situation, because it's not impacting one person, because number of cases you'll have, they are the only source of income. So though one person is directly impacting, but their family members, so nobody wants. But from the employer side also, if you think, because the lot of discussion which is happening, I think there are certain things which are not in control, and this is where the employer takes such call. But I think another part is, how we manage this transition. I think that is also important. Anyways, we'll discuss on those lines also. So layoffs, like I mentioned, something which is not in our hand. We can't control that completely, because we have to take that action. We will, but how smoothly we can do those layoffs, I think that is very important. It's very sensitive, I think, topic, and people undergo a lot of stress and all, and such thing happens. So anyways, with this, I'll move on to my next question, Amit. So what kind of support can organization provide to the employees, who are affected by this layoff? And just like we discussed, have your organization been affected by this anyhow? And if so, then what support was provided to the affected employees from your end as an organization?
Yeah. Good. I think that's a good question, and I think that is what matters the most, because rest all is I would say, information, knowledge, and the realities that we are facing. But we, as an individual or as a professional or as an organization, what we are doing with this and how we are coping up with this, and if we have faced this, is most important, I feel. And I think that's the most important point of discussion, I feel. Unfortunately, yes, we are impacted by this. In the year 2021 and 2022, But just to give you a point, and I will be primarily talking about on the experience that we have with Netafim, with Orbia, and with our employees, because that's what we have done, and that's what that represents our value system as Orbia, as Netafim. That represents our DNA, and that's what we do for our employees, irrespective whether it is online or offline.
Mhm.
So in 2021, just to give you a context, 2020 COVID started. We were still doing okay. Say like if we close the previous year of 2019 at 100, 2020 we closed at say 95 or 90. Okay, 2021 we were at 60. To give you the scale of nosedive that we had. From 100 to almost 60 in 2021. But most importantly, there was a mandate from the organization, because if you remember, Q2 of 2021, we were going through the second wave of COVID, and that
Second way,
was
right?
that was disastrous for the people, for the families, for the employees. So the management took a very, very human call, I would say, and they said, nothing doing. We will not do any reduction in this Q2, Q3 till the time we are facing this particular onslaught of COVID, because we had no idea when this would end. Management said, okay, we will cut other luxuries, we will cut other spend, what we call, in management jargon, the discretionary spend. We will not touch employees. And that's, I feel, is something very, very important for the employers or organizations to remember. Because, and why I'm saying this today, after almost 2 years, I can see the positive sides of it. The impact it has on people later on, the way we were perceived, because there was a confidence that people got, ki, come what may, we will not be on the roads. Our salaries, and I'm proud to say that on this entire period, on 31st, salaries were credited in the account with zero reduction, whether it was TeamLease or Netafim, on roll or off roll. You have been, we have been exchanging invoices and making payments, and you are regular in. And
I
I'm
think
just
that is a great gesture which organizations have shown actually, because in the tough time, if you're holding their hands,
yeah.
it's because not though they receive salary, every month, but those salaries, have a very different impact on the, like you rightly mentioned, building the confidence, in the mind,
Exactly.
because this is the time where they actually wanted that support.
Most important. And I would also like to thank TeamLease and you and your team who supported us, because I know the way things are working that time. Somebody is working from home, somebody is working from village, somebody is working from God knows from which places, and things moved. And we could pull it through, and it is very important. And that's where we decided that we will not touch people. So 2021 got over, we got little breather. We were okay with starting with 2022, thought okay, now nothing would happen. But there were kind of, I would say, echoes of third wave. So we were still worried, what to do now, because we were under a lot of pressure. As I said, our working capital was under pressure, and then people were there. But fortunately, that third wave moment passed very quickly, and then we grouped together as a management, and we said okay, with direction from our MD, CEO, global team, we said okay, now let's sit back and think what we need to do. And then we identified the areas where we need to rationalize or optimize the manpower. And I would not mind saying that it resulted into reduction of manpower and into specific states where where we were not doing good. So if I come of one of our business units in south, we were say 100 pre-COVID, we became almost 30 post-COVID. Now, for 100, if I had corresponding resources, I can't afford to continue the same number of resources when I am 30 from 100, right? So I had to rationalize that. And just to give you a scale on numbers, we had to take a call for about 200 people to be managed for layoff. And but management was very supportive. We worked on the strategy, we worked on the emotional aspect, the financial aspect, and what we need to do. And most importantly here, I feel the communication. We started communicating to people about this expected layoff by end of Q4 of 2021. We continued that communication in Q1 of 2022, where we were saying, look, we are trying our best that we don't have to go for this, but God forbids, if we need to do this, please mentally be prepared. Don't get a surprise that now we are talking something that okay, tomorrow offices are closed. We are not those organizations who would, send an email on the Monday or a Friday night that, we are closed from tomorrow and, you are logged off from the system. We are not that. Yeah, so that's fine. I mean, we don't want to comment on that. But then we said, okay, let's start mentally preparing our managers because they are the first one. See, if I am an employee on field, for me, who is the company? My manager is the company. My employee in the field doesn't interact with me daily. He doesn't interact with my business head daily. He doesn't interact with my CEO daily. For him, his manager is CEO, HR head, whatever you call. So first we prepared our managers. We told them, look, this is we need to handle sensitively. Start preparing the list. And when you are preparing the list, and this is most important aspect, when you are preparing the list, be just and fair. Don't go by whom you like, whom you don't like, because if you do that, you won't be able to justify to yourself that why you are taking this call. So we took, okay, let's take performance as a criteria. Let's take, what we call who had like last in first out, a very principle of natural justice. Those who have come in the last, they need to go first. So we had a combination of last in first out performance, the state performance. So we had to distribute these numbers because we wanted to be fair on distribution of these numbers.
This is a logical approach basically rather than left right.
Because first of all, forget about somebody going to the legal way, somebody going to somebody outside. And we know in our Indian system there is a ecosystem is very supportive and very conducive. When such thing happens, there will be a lot of people, so-called protector of these people. They will come on the kind of scene, and they would ask or demand for various explanations. So we said, let's do something which we are convinced to ourselves first. Forget about the other ecosystem. We ourselves, if I am standing in front of mirror in the morning, seeing myself face to face, I should be convinced that what we are doing, when I'm saying I represent the company. So we should be convinced that what we are doing is just and fair. And with that approach, we prepared the list. You remember, like with our TeamLease contract or in our employment contract for on-roll, there is a clause of notice pay, which with TeamLease it is 15 days or 1 month. For our people, it would be 1 month, 2 months. We said, forget about the notice period clause. That so anyway, it is given. What extra we should help them? So we give them that cushion, additional cushion of notice period. To an extent that we have told them, look, if you don't get a job within this 2 months period, we will extend you the period, but with leave without pay. So see, here we need to balance the win-win situation. What is a win-win here? After those 2 months of notice, I am not taking the financial responsibility, but I am taking the responsibility of continuity of service. And why it is important? God forbid something happens to him or his family, at least he has a medical insurance cover in that period until he gets a job. But the softer commitment here with the employee was, please tell us if you get a job somewhere in between, because I don't want a conflict of double employment happening, because that has an impact on PF, on other things, because on the payslip, if you have 2 UN numbers coming, there is a problem. So we said, and people understood it. People said, sir, you will be the first one, we'll give you the call the moment we get an offer letter. So don't worry about that. So I'm saying that's the level of communication and trust we had to build. And we also given them an assurance, look, we are in a business where today we are reducing, tomorrow we will be after you to join us back. So if we have an opportunity in future, you will be the first one who will have a right of refusal of coming back. We will approach you first. And we did that. Out of those 200 people, I think we already have about 35 to 40 people working with us today as I'm talking. When we, because fortunately, environment is becoming positive, starting off, H1 of 2023, we are bouncing back. We are doing, again, the government subsidies have started flowing, business has started flowing. And when business starts, you have to hire people on yesterday basis, because then I have those people whom I can bank on. Those 200 people is my, pool whom I can talk to and tell them, guys, if you are not having a job, or if you are having a job and if you want to come back, you have an opportunity. I would not tell them, please leave that job and come. It's their call. We have an opportunity. You have worked with us. We know each other well. You're most welcome. So I have about 40 people working with us today. So why I'm saying this today, because when I had told them, when we had told them those point in time, I had no clue that what would happen in the future. But when the opportunity came, we walked our talk. They were the first one to get the call from my HR team saying that, look, guys, we have an opportunity. If you want to join, please come in next 15 days. We never told them that just leave your job and come, because morally we feel responsible. That's the professional way of doing things. If I'm telling someone, please do your job, complete your job, then come back. So we give them 15 days, 1 month time to complete their notice, responsibility, and then join us. So I'm saying this has given a lot of confidence, trust to people. Even we had started the counseling services for them those days, 2020, 2021 end and 2022, H1 of 2022, when we did this exercise. We tied up with one all India based online counseling services, given those numbers to everybody, flash those numbers. They were on our desktops, on our WhatsApp messages. They can call up that number. The counseling service is available in 18 Indian languages, the local language. Person has to just tell that, what I am feeling, how I am feeling. This is more for a psychological comfort, because imagine, someone is losing the job and that person has a family to take care. And if imagine the pressure, we need to empathize. If I am at that place, what would I do? I need someone to talk to. So that someone cannot be me. I am not God. I am not trained to do that. Someone has to be someone who is trained professionally to do this. So we had those services, not only for those people. Imagine out of my, say 100 people, for example, if 20 people are going, it has an impact on other 80 people, because those 80 people are feeling, भाई मेरा नंबर तो नहीं लगेगा, मेरा नंबर तो इसमें कब आ सकता है. They have that level of anxiety. So for them also there was a counseling services for managers also. Imagine my manager in the field who is every day sitting, having breakfast, lunch, tea together, and out of those 4 people, 5 people, he has to tell 2 people, ki friend, after 15 days we are not there with you. The kind of pressure that person has on his mind psychologically. So we provide services to them also. So I'm saying these are the very softer things, but we must take care, when we deal with such layoffs. And our experience is, touch wood, we haven't faced a single legal case with these numbers which we, laid off. I know there are laws, there are clauses, there are, ways to deal with it, but the best way is to avoid them, because at the end of the day, it's a negative energy, I would say, because nobody wins in that. Somebody's win is somebody's loss in that process. So, might as well we, kind of deal with in a manner that we don't have to go that way. And I think people are, and I must thank all those people who were impacted, that they could understand this particular aspect of this whole process. That look, if we go legally, who is going to earn? I think only the lawyer would earn. We would end up paying fees. The guy would end up, suffering, going to the, whatever types of labor courts or session courts or whatever courts. Lawyer would get his fees every month. So I told them, let's decide, between ourselves. That was the conversation we had, for the people, those, because, all of them were not that easy to deal with. Some of them, tried giving us those messages, okay, now we will approach someone, we will do this, that. So we said, okay, fine, it's your choice. We are a free country. You can do whatever you want. But remember these points. And we had to do that conversation. And I think then things fall in place. So
I think that was very important also. I think we also discussed, I mentioned this point, there are some stages, when there's no option for employer also. Like you rightly mentioned, initially in the first wave, there was no, you were taking care of the employees and all. Second wave was we tried. Then the third wave, when it was expected, the people started preparing how we're going to manage. But I think one is obviously headcount reduction. The other important thing, at the end of the day, we're not dealing with headcount. It's basically human. So which comes into picture, because it's a very sensitive, point. Like you rightly mentioned, how I think the communication part which you mentioned really, I think, because the way you're putting it across and how the people are getting communicated, and second, the people who are handling, like you give an example of the manager, because at a senior level, people know maybe how they'll put it across, but end of the day, somebody's approaching the manager is not able to talk on the same line, then the gap comes. And I think a good thing is people have that, you've built that confidence, what I feel, and that's the reason people came and informed you when they got some new job and they know tomorrow when something is there. So there is an option, the door is always open, I can join back. So if they understand.
Most importantly, sorry to interrupt you.
Yeah, no.
We set the rules of the game. What I mean by rules of the game, we said, please tell the truth to your prospective employer. why you are losing the job. Tell them that my company currently is facing the financial challenges because of the business environment, and that's the reason I am losing my job. It's not my performance, it's not me individually. So we wanted to dealing the individual kind of the societal taboo that we have on if I am told to go, I'm seen like a someone who has done a crime. No, it's not your
Yeah,
problem.
somebody got terminated because of something and people may misinterpret.
Exactly, yeah. So we said, first of all, dealing that from your mind and tell your employer. And we had like all my HRBPs, including myself, including our managers, we had given our numbers to them. You said, please give our reference number to your prospective employer. If they have a doubt, tell them to talk to us, and we will tell the same thing. And believe me, my HRBPs have got calls from many, reference checks. I got at least 15 to 20 calls for reference check. Just they were not ready to believe that company can be so transparent and so honest. I said, look, I'm not listed in India, and that's why my results are not there on the website, but this is the fact. And if you want to believe me, these people have not done the crime, and they are the best guys we have, but unfortunately they are in the list. So if you have an opportunity, please give them the opportunity. And that was the reference check that was done, and many people got benefited because of that. Because ultimately, see, if you also know, like as an employer, you are also an employer, we are also an employer. When someone says that I have lost a job, unfortunately we are so biased that our mind works, इसने जरूर कुछ गड़बड़ किया होगा, कुछ तो लफड़ा किया होगा. So let me check 10 times, so I become more cautious in dealing with that individual, for which that individual has no fault whatsoever. So we said, let's deal with this very, very, kind of rationally. And that has helped us. And people were honest in saying.
The best thing when they're checking the reference from the current employer who is giving the positive feedback, I think the best thing, because they know the reason also. I think that's what I'm saying, that like you mentioned, small thing actually made a big impact, the small thing, because see, that's build that confidence in the individual. And like initially you mentioned that discretionary spent and all, not touching the people first and all. Like these are the pointers. They say they are like I said, there are certain things which are not in control. Obviously, people need to go for it. But again, how the entire transition has been, managed. And one another important thing I think which really helps, I'm telling from my experience also, which you touched upon, is the counseling. And counseling from the right person, people who have that expertise to counsel, rather than just discussing. And I think these are the things, and you mentioned like 40 people have again joined,
Yes.
So the remaining will get confidence. Okay, tomorrow I can again join the company. There's an opportunity. What people were saying is not just for the sake of it.
We have not only lip service, we have walked our talk. So that is what gives more credibility, and that re-emphasizes, the management's commitment to what we said and what we delivered. That is what is most important.
Yeah, and I think that played an important role over what I can make it out. Okay, with this, I'll just move on to the next question, Amit. So, what are the immediate and long-term consequences of layoff on individuals and society as per you? And does it impact financial stability or unemployment rates and all, and the overall psychological well-being of individuals? We touched upon human element part. So it's not only headcount. I think there are many factors which comes into picture. The psychological impact or psychological well-being of these individuals also get impacted because suddenly they're losing the job. So what are, as per you, the long-term consequences of these layoffs?
See, this I would put it this way, more of psychological, because what impacts most is the impact on person's psyche, the impact on person's confidence, and impact on person's self-belief. Self-belief again comes from the confidence and those things. But now again, coming to the Indian environment, imagine someone going back home and telling the spouse that, now I have 2 months of job assurance and I need to look for an opportunity. Now, normal situations, it's easy to find a job in 2 months, if you ask me. If someone really is reasonably skillful and wants to work without putting a lot of conditions of, the location on the salary or blah, blah, blah things, one can get an opportunity. But the moment, the beauty of this job market is when you are not looking for the job, you will have 5 opportunities. But when you are looking for the job, there will not be any opportunities. And I'm sure all of us as a professionals have experienced this. You talk to your contact or your network. Arey boss, wo abhi एक वीक पहले बोला होता तो अभी अपॉर्चुनिटी था, अभी हमने क्लोज किया वो ऑफर. That's a normal dialogue that happens,
It's
right?
like, when we say we need a skilled manpower as per the required skill set for a particular job. Now, when these people are getting passed with a particular diploma or degree or some courses, that time they don't have. So they opt for something else. Then we say, why they're moving to a different this thing. It's like, right time for getting that. I think it's more linked with that only. Yeah.
Yeah. So that happens, and the family is under pressure. Now, suppose if they have, and that people have different life stages, bachelors, just married, having kids, having parent responsibility. So I would put them into those boxes. And depending on your life stage of your, age and career and experience, it has different implications. Because at each one of them, that is the moment which has an impact on their life goals, on the consequences they have as an individual. I mean, just because now probably we are into late 40s and early 50s, we say that earlier it comes the better because you have less responsibility. Someone who is a bachelor, of course he has to take care of parents and cousins and sisters and blah blah blah, but at least the responsibility circle is little lower. As one progresses in life, you have a family, you have kids, you have parents, and the responsibility circle increases. So I think that is one. I'm just trying to say that how it impacts, and
Yeah.
that puts pressure on an individual, and that has an impact on the financial stability. So I mean, the way to deal with probably is this, and these are the correlated. I mean, I tell all my managers and all my employees, colleagues that in current scenario, please keep the reserves of at least 6 months of your monthly spend. Your EMIs, your commitments, your school fees, college fees, blah 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 blah. Keep those 6 months as a something which you can liquidate in a 15 days time, and so that you are financially secure. Some because anything can happen.
Yeah.
After COVID, after COVID, personally, I have concluded things can go crazy to any extent, and no one is insulated from this impact. So we need to be prepared, and if you are prepared, because see, we can talk of counseling, we can talk of good things, but money has no alternative. If I need to pay fees of my son in the college, I have to pay. I can't go and talk philosophy there. So it's a hard cash that has an impact. So once I'm secure on that front, I think rest of the things are taken care of. And at each level, and this I think applicable, I call it lighter side from peon to president. Peon has his set of cost of living, president has his cost of living. So he has to manage those 6 months the way he or she wants to manage. And I think once that is done, the rest of the things fall in place because it's a matter of time. You also and the family also reconciles. You also reconcile. Then you again say, okay, this is a time which would pass. You start talking to your network. Look back at yourself. What I can do, what I cannot do. But it takes time. At least my experience is, though fortunately with God's grace, we haven't experienced ourselves. But it takes about a month or month and a half to accept this reality and bounce back as an individual. So one has to pass through that time. There is no shortcut. This is
So
the
you rightly, sorry, I'm just interrupting. As you rightly mentioned, the 6 month, you have that savings, so then 15 days you can liquid and you can manage those things because we don't know how the things will be in future also. I
yeah.
think that's a very important point. But if I just link up, my other point is I think obviously one is on the financial aspect. Now, coping with layoffs, obviously it's very challenging. It's not that easy, when somebody gets such news and all. So how can individual build emotional resilience during uncertainty and changes for you? So one is the financial aspect. You said 6 months we should have that backup and all. But from the emotional perspective, what do you like to suggest? How they can build that resilience?
The emotional perspective, I feel, and it's again, though philosophical, but it is coming out of my own experience of dealing, observing these things around. I think it is accepting the fact that nothing is permanent. Let's put it this way. This let it may sound philosophical, but you and me have so-called permanent jobs. What are our permanent jobs? It's a 3 months notice period, which either way we can give. That's permanent. So what are we saying? I mean, we must be confident of our skills. We must be confident of what we can do. And when I'm saying skills, it again applies from peon to president. A good peon, if you ask me, or a good driver, with all due respect to the skill level, are not available nowadays. So if we are confident of our skill, in each level has different level of skills. Somebody in the like what we need to do, hard work or a soft work or a cognitive work or a physical work or whatever we call. If we are confident about our those skills, believe me, jobs are available, and we should be. That's what we need to reconcile, or have that acceptance in our mind, that because, for example, let me take my example. If I'm having this role today, and unfortunately I if something happens and I need to leave the job, okay, I have my all hands, legs, and my mind with me. My experience is with me. Okay, I may not get the similar salary or similar role. That's fine, but at least I would survive. I would not die. I mean, I can do things with my hand. वह सिनेरियो में मेहनत तो कर सकता हूँ, skill जाके अपना, I can sustain myself, and I think if one reconciles to this reality of life, I think the emotional resilience is an outcome. So then you see, still it will take you some time to absorb and respond. The first would be the reaction, but the second one would be the response. And the better we understand this reality, I think the responses are better. And I think it's a journey, it's a learning, and it's easy for us to say this when we are not impacted. But I'm not sure tomorrow if I'm impacted, what time I would take to respond. Though I'm saying this today, but these things are very dynamic, because in psychology people say that you can't see your picture when you are in the frame, right? You had to come out of frame and see the picture. So it is like that. I can say this today with this humility, probably because I'm not impacted. But if I'm impacted and I'm part of the frame, I need to experience that and then need to see whether I react or I respond. So I think
you
that's
also touched upon this learning part, like learning this thing, because obviously we don't know how the things are changing. It's very dynamic. So, how can an individual embrace this continuous learning and adaptability to stay relevant in evolving job market? Because we know the upgrading skills is very much required today. We've been talking about, we normally talks about reskilling, upskilling, and all. So, what would like to suggest for an individual how they can continue this process of learning and all? Because that's the key, basically. Like you said today, I know I have a mindset, I have that learning, and I can go and do something. Yes, if something happens. So obviously there are certain skills, but yeah, the way the things are changing, obviously when the technology is getting evolved or introduced in every sphere now. So what would you like to suggest on the learning front for an individual?
Yeah, I think, and that's a very interesting question, and probably we'll have different answers for different set of people. But if we try and kind of generalize the pointers which one needs to look at, I put it this way: what one has to be very clear about what is one's core competence, and what is a complementary competence I have. Core competence, I feel, remains throughout your life. The core competence or core skill or your talent, whatever you put the English words to it, it remains. What changes is the complementary skills, complementary competencies, and that evolves over a period of time. So let's take an example. Let's take our own profession example, because that's the best we can talk about. As an HR professional, if we are an HR professional, what would be our core competence? Our core competence is, empathy, having understanding of the local ecosystem, legal system, HR processes, the organizational culture, and blah, blah, blah. There could be the books and theories on what the HR, competencies are. Having said this, first of all, one needs to be proficient in these areas, what we talk about. Then with the change of time, what complementary skills are changing are, like when probably you and me would have started careers, things were different. We were in the age of time office, where things were, there were time cards, and there were punch cards, and there were
each remember that green leaf cards or mint.
Exactly. Yeah. But the concept of attendance and time and attendance still exists today. There is a human being, there is a component, there is a calculation, still constant. The means have changed. We are doing it in on mobile. We have applications where we register our. But as an HR professional, do I have the insight or understanding of this change, and can I handle this? If that is done.
So skills, then adaptability to the new changes which are happening. I think that's the key, because
I
core
need to
competence
keep
like
on
that is
learning.
required. You need to know HR actually.
Yeah, and I need to keep on keeping my eyes and ear open. Okay, as professional, when I am evolving, I mean, I personally I follow that principle that I don't think of today. Today, okay, anyways, I am leaving. If I survive for next 3 years, what would happen after 3 years? That is what I need to start thinking and learning today. And if one keeps doing that, I think it has helped me so far. So I don't see a reason why it won't help me going forward, and why it should not help someone else. Because we have to keep on sensing what is happening. What is happening in this world. What is, like, people are nowadays talking of AI and artificial intelligence and the job loss and all blah blah things are happening. I mean, believe me, I'm not afraid of that. And I think no one should be afraid of that, because I think human being who has created the artificial intelligence is in control. And if human being knows that if AI is doing something, what else human being can do that AI cannot do? So that is what we need to find out, what we can do, which currently AI cannot do. Right? And I'm just giving an example because nowadays everybody talks about there will be job loss. Same thing happened 20 years back when laptops, computers came, the other things came. People were talking, oh, now the tsunami aa jayega. Like I
Correct.
remember those late 90s when there was, what was that? Uh, वो अपना जब डिकेड चेंज होने वाला था तो वो क्या था वो?
The date supposed to be every system will get stuck and all.
Correct,
The
correct,
date,
correct,
the
correct.
2000 thing.
Millennium
Uh,
change. What
Correct.
not?
So,
My
all
God.
computers will stop working and all. Everybody was
You
talking
know,
about it. But anyways,
planes
we
would,
overcome those challenges. Yeah.
yeah, planes would crash, and God knows people were what they were talking. The change of millennium. But I think human
Right.
being is smart enough to deal with all of this. So, and I think, and we as a human race, I think we are blessed that we have a mind, two hands, and two legs, that we can think and can be preemptive of what is happening. And I think if we continuously doing that in all the areas, irrespective of the job. For example, let me give a very simple example of a housekeeping person. Housekeeping person or a facility management person. 20 years back, we know how it was happening. Nowadays, with automation, we know how we are happening. The person, but who is doing or managing it, if he is aware of all these tools, processes, technologies, he can deal with it better, and he has to keep on adapting himself over a period of time.
Correct.
Can't remain isolated. No, I am the best housekeeper. I can do the best of the world, irrespective of them. Companies would say, thank you very much. You be at home
And
and
I
do
think the
whatever you want.
important thing, Amit, like you mentioned, the change which is happening, but now the change is happening. See the pace. I think the pace has increased in the case whatever changes are happening. Earlier, it was taking time, but with the
It was gradual. It
technology
was
and with
gradual.
the
Yeah.
pace with which it is changing, we need to keep upgrading ourselves in line with it.
Yeah.
I think that is very important.
Yeah, that's what, in the beginning when I say, I mean, I say it on the lighter side, whether it is Sachin or Virat Kohli or whosoever. अभी हर मैच में उतर के सेंचुरी मारना पड़ता है. Every day you have to play half century or a century. It's not that I have 70 centuries or 100 centuries as my record. Fine, people will say good, very good. It's a good record. You play
Right.
today, good. If no, okay, be a coach, be a mentor, or be whatever you want, or be a spectator and keep clapping. But that's what people would say. So, that's what I feel.
Right. I think that's I think a very good example. I know how the changes have happened from test match and one day, then now T20. So then again it's more about adaptability. How there are players who plays all these three formats, right? So how they're
Absolutely.
adapting those games and all, how they're building the skills or maybe the capability to handle those things. Actually, I think it's also key. So, as we conclude this discussion, Amit, what final words of advice or encouragement would you like to give to individuals navigating the evolving job market? A quick advice from your
Okay.
end.
Quick one, and I would only say what I have been following as an individual and as a professional, and that has helped me so far in all these years. And some experienced person has told me during our convocation period. And what the person said was that you need to remember three words, and the three words are hard work, homework, and network. In that order, when I say in that order, hard work, there is no shortcut to hard work. One has to do hard work and do whatever you are doing, irrespective of the level. Even if you become a president of the company, there is no shortcut to hard work in your assigned areas of work. Believe me, that's a fact of life. Then the homework.
Right.
when we are doing hard work, it's important to do homework. And homework means knowing about the past, knowing about the future, understanding the ecosystem, sensing those signals which are coming to you from the ecosystem. And depending on the level, role, organization you're working with, the meaning of these words changes, but it has a importance. And the
Yeah.
last one is network, equally important. One has to have the social, professional networks which one can bank upon as and when it is needed. But it has to be done in this order. Some people do it the other way around, which doesn't work. If you only keep doing networking without minus homework and hard work, it won't help. It can help you once, but not always. But
Right.
this is what I feel. Simple
So I
thing.
think it's three golden words of advice: hard work, homework, and network. I think thank you so much, Amit. And with this, we have come to end of the session. And I'd like to thank you for joining us and sharing your views on today's topic. Have a great time ahead. Thank you so much, Amit. Thank you.
Thanks, Sumit, and thanks for this opportunity. And I really loved this interaction. And just
Same
to
here.
reiterate that whatever examples or things I would have spoken are spoken in the context of the subject and to put the point across, and with all the respect and kind of humility and the respect to everyone in the ecosystem. So no intention of offending anybody, any profession or any individual, but the idea was to put the point across. So these things needs to be seen in the context, and if someone
Right.
picks up few sentences out of the context, it can mislead someone. So that's what I want to put as a disclaimer. As a professional nowadays, we
So
need to be
like
very
people have their
aware.
own perception, but we request please look on the positive side of it. Don't linger on the
Exactly.
other side. Thank you so much, Amit. Once again, thank you. Pleasure talking to you.